I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Paul Uithol from Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. And he's going to talk about the Open Cities Africa, the building resilience through open data communities.
Okay, so good morning everyone. Still just in time for lunch. We're just figuring out how the technology works here. Always the same. The bigger and better. Thank you. So today we'll be looking at some of the projects that we're implementing with Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and specifically a couple for GFDRR as part of the Open Cities Africa program. So this is part of the Open DRI programs that GFDR is implementing in Africa. My name is Paul Uithol. I'm Director of Programs at Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, which is part of the Missing Maps Consortium. So we have a booth right over there in case you want to visit us later. And as we all know, we've seen a lot of GIS systems, dashboards, DRL explanations of DRR strategies, but all of those depend on having good data. Good quality, up-to-date, complete input data. And the way we go about collecting that is to work with local communities. So set up community mapping, participatory mapping projects in which we engage local communities to start understanding more of their own environments, be collecting data on those, and working together with the municipalities, with agencies and line ministries to be including that in national disaster risk management planning and start using that as the basis for financing interventions and preparing the strategies. So the complete Open Cities Africa program includes, I think, 11 cities across the continent. These are all cities that are experiencing a combination of rapid urbanization and expansion. Some of these cities are growing at 5-6% a year, which translates to 300,000-400,000 people, which all get, to a large extent, those are being added in informal settlements, slums at the edges of the cities. They all suffer to some degree from climate change effects, changes in precipitation patterns, and all the associated problems with that. So a lot of these cities suffer from either coastal or pluvial flooding, and are getting hit by worse and worse flash floods and year-round flooding even in some cases. So this is a total list. Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, the organization I work for, has been implementing these projects in Monrovia, Accra, Kampala, and we also have a large project in Dar es Salaam, Ramani Huria. And yeah, just to give you an idea, this is what some of these places look like when the rains start properly. And in some cities, I just saw some tweets yesterday from Dar es Salaam, from our projects there, Ramani Huria, where houses are being swept away, floodplains are just being filled up with flash floods up to 5 meters. And there's a lot of contributing factors to these. So we need to get a better understanding both of what factors contribute to these types of flooding, and also make sure we engage local communities to make sure they understand, for example, what issues it's causing if you keep just dumping your solid waste year-round onto your immediate surroundings, with the effect that it accumulates year-round, and then in the wet season it all flushes into choke points in the drainage in the water systems. So I don't know if anyone has the answer to this question, but no. This is Monrovia, which has, I think, about 200 days a year of solid rain. Whoa. Interesting callers. So we all know that we need good data to be making proper decisions and informing our DRR strategies. Understand and be able to quantify disaster risk, the underlying risks in the data. And the methodology we've been using in these programs is, one, prepare and assess the current ecosystem, find the right people to talk to, define a problem statement, make sure you have buy-in from municipalities, from the ministries to be running these exercises, and make sure there's a path forward. So make sure this type of data gets included into disaster risk management planning. There's a path forward, in this case to a large extent with World Bank funding, to be actually putting this data into action and turning it into actual interventions which are helping the people living in those communities. Part two is, well, a lot of training involved, training, capacity building, and a lot of this is also educational. So we train local youths to be using UAVs, to be collecting imagery in these locations, for example, help them use smartphones, digital data collection tools, and send them out to start collecting data in their communities. So as part of that, we also, the first part of the process is to be digitizing imagery, make sure we have a complete understanding of buildings, households, population estimates, road networks, and then start adding data on services, water, sanitation, health, education, to that map. First step is creating maps, data products out of that, providing dashboards, and again, we're doing this through local tech hubs. We're not sending a bunch of experts to do the work. We're providing them with the tools and technology to start doing this and putting it into action themselves. And the last part is, well, actually trying to get local stakeholders and ministries to start acting on this information. And this is often, well, this is by far the longest step of the process, as you can imagine. It's a multi-year process in many cases, but we keep engaging them and also make sure we can be expanding these products to other parts of the city. So, to do that, we use an open collaborative approach based on a combination of OpenStreetMap. So that's a free editable map of the world where everyone can add information to, but you're also able to export all that information and use it in GIS analysis. And for example, it allows you to analyze very effectively distance from households to water points, analyze where people need to walk for more than, say, 30 minutes to get access to clean water, access to education and healthcare of various sorts, that type of thing. So here's a couple of pictures of that process. So we train them to use Open Data Kit, Open Map Kit, start collecting that data, and we're providing a bunch of tools also to be able to manage the mapping process, make sure we have quality assurance on top of that to validate and verify the information, because at the end of the day there's also going to be a lot of questions on this data has been collected not by, say, professionals, but by community. How can we trust this data? Have you done your due diligence? Are you sure this is correct? So we try to preempt a lot of those questions and make sure that we build also trust in the data among government. So one of those cases, let's have a closer look at that, is Accra, where we've been doing this mapping in 4 communities: Alekboshi, Nima, Alayo, Akwetiman. And most of the problems in Accra are being caused by the Odo River, which cuts straight north to south through the city. And there's a lot of pollution in the river. It's basically used as a dumping route for solid waste, a lot of open defecation, that type of thing. So it's a very polluted river. And when the wet season hits, the whole thing gets blocked up at the exit, flows back into the city, and over the riverbanks. We've been working in Accra with a lot of the local stakeholders, ministries. I just put up a long list there, but it's part of the longer-term strategy to make sure this data gets actually used. And you can also see here the difference between the imagery that is available from commercial imagery, satellite imagery providers, versus what we're getting by actually working with the local community to allow them to fly drones, get up-to-date imagery, and allow them to do a much better job at the mapping. So here's some of our folks in action in Accra. You can see them going around the city, collecting data on waterways, drainage, but also, say, building conditions, materials, everything that's relevant for the prevalent risks in that area. In Monrovia, to go to, say, the second use case, we've been working in Doe community in Claratown, which are all located on Bushort Island, which is basically a swamp. It's this area. That area there is being surrounded by water, by rivers. It's really not suitable for living there, to be honest, but it's one place where people can get, can move from rural areas into the city and start to build, make their living, get accommodation, get a house, get a roof over their head, basically. And a lot of the time they do this by actually by dumping a lot of solid waste into the swamp to make sure it gets sort of stabilized until they can start building a house on top of it. So this is, footage that we're getting also from the UAVs we've been using in Monrovia. You see basically this part of the city is flooded for 7 to 8 months a year, and yeah, this has of course huge implications for public health, sanitation, and access to all other types of services. So also in Monrovia we've been working with, you see some pictures there, well as soon as you pull out any type of technology you draw a huge crowd of people interested in what are you doing, where's this UAV going, and yeah, a lot of very enthusiastic reactions, up to the point that you get all the school children trying to grab the UAVs out of the air, so you got to take some precautions. But also there we've been working with a local tech hub, iLab, to be helping us train local youth and community and on these types of skills, thereby also providing some of them with better employment prospects. So across the entire Open Cities program, it's been running across 12 cities concurrently, and in that task we've been mapping over 500,000 features, which is buildings, roads, services, that type of thing. 30,000 kilometers of road being added to the map. And over 500 people have been trained on GIS skills, cartography, and some of them are now using also that as a means to, say, find their way and being employed by the very stakeholders, government agencies we've been working with to collect this data, thereby really strengthening the process and also building skills within local government to be expanding these projects themselves. So some of the success factors there have been the very close collaboration, also facilitated by the local World Bank offices, with local government agencies, urban planning, NSOs, National Statistics Offices, etc., working with the local communities and actually allowing them to do most of the work themselves instead of this being a process that's out of their control. They are in control of the process and the outcomes, and also the narrative allows them to be much more effective in advocating for their causes, work on budgeting also for interventions, etc. And yeah, the educational aspects, so developing digital skills for youth. So the end results of this have been that it's allowed us to do flood modeling around the Lake Victoria coast in Kampala, together with KCCA, Kampala Capital City Authority, which is now being used to improve drainage in Kampala. In Accra, this is being made part of the Garrett's urban upgrading project, which is working on informing interventions on the Odo River, dredging, solid waste programs, and that type of thing. And in Monrovia, Lichtjes and Ministry of Urban Affairs have started using this data, also Ministry of Works and Water, I think, have started using this data to engage with their citizens and actually work out how to improve services and urban infrastructure for their residents. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show you for today. So thanks for being here, and I think we have a couple minutes left.